All right, so picture this. The Buddha is right on the edge of his final nirvana. You've got all the most powerful beings in the universe gathered around to hear his very last words. But what he has to say, well, it's not some gentle, peaceful goodbye. No, it's a final, incredibly urgent warning.
So this is the question at the very heart of his final teaching. And I know, it sounds insane, right? Almost unbelievable. But this is exactly what the Buddha lays out as a fundamental law of cause and effect. The warning is this severe because the stakes are just mind-bogglingly high. So how could a few simple words lead to such a horrifying fate?
At its core, the Buddha's warning is all about creating division. He talks about people who create two sayings in the Dharma. You know, when someone declares, oh, this teaching is the real deal, but that one over there is totally false. Or they say, this path is good for these people, but not for those people. That, he says, is a profound act of slander. And it's an act that sets you on a path to a kind of suffering you just can't even imagine. And to really hammer this point home, to make sure it wasn't just some abstract philosophical idea, the Buddha gets incredibly personal. He dives way back into his own history, across countless lifetimes to tell a story. And get this isn't just some random parable. It's a true account of a massive mistake that he himself once made.
Okay, so the story takes us to a past world eons and eons ago. It was a time when another Buddha was teaching, one with the incredible name King of the Blazing Stainless Fame. And in that world, there were these two monks, two really prominent guys, whose actions would literally echo through the ages and become the very foundation for this final teaching. So let's meet our two characters. On one side, you've got this monk named Jingming, which means pure life. And this guy was the real deal. A brilliant teacher, everybody loved him. He'd mastered a mind-blowing number of scriptures and was super skillful at teaching anyone. But then, you have the other monk, Dhammo. Now, Dhammo was no slouch either. He was an expert on the doctrine of emptiness, really knew his stuff. The problem? He was also super arrogant, rigid, and just got intensely jealous of how popular Jingming was. It's a classic setup, right? Wisdom versus ego? Well, you can probably guess what happened next. All that jealousy just festered until it exploded into a full-on public attack. Dhammo started going around, telling everyone that his way of understanding emptiness was the only true way. He flat out accused the beloved Jingming of being a total fraud, claiming his teachings were impure and corrupt, basically worthless. He drew a line in the sand. My way is right, and his way is completely wrong. And this is where the story takes a really dark turn. That one single act of slander, just fueled by ego and jealousy, set off this catastrophic chain of karmic consequences for Dhammo. It's where the rubber really meets the road in this teaching. So, the big question is, what exactly was the price he paid? 70. A single number, but the scale is just immense. For that one act of slander, Dhammo was plunged into hell realms where he suffered for 70 kalpas. Now, just to put that in perspective, a kalpa, an eon, is a period of time so long it's almost impossible for us to even think about. The classic analogy is that it's longer than it would take to wear down a giant mountain just by brushing it with a piece of silk once every century. And here's the kicker. That was only the beginning. So after those 70 eons in hell, you'd think he'd be done, right? Nope. The karmic bill still wasn't paid. Next, he was reborn in the animal realm for another 60 eons. And after that, he finally made it back to being born as a human again. But for 60,000 lifetimes in a row, he lived in the worst poverty imaginable, and he was born without a tongue. A direct karmic consequence for the very words he used to slander someone else all those ages ago. Okay, so after laying out this absolutely horrifying story, the Buddha brings everyone, all these assembled gods and bodhisattvas, back to the present moment. I mean, you can imagine, he has their absolute undivided attention. And then he gets ready to drop a bombshell, a secret that's about to flip everything they thought they knew completely on its head. He just asks them straight up, letting the question hang there in the air for a second. So, who were these two monks from this forgotten time? Who was that good, virtuous teacher who got slandered? And more importantly, who was that arrogant monk who paid such an unthinkable price? And this is the big reveal, the moment that makes the whole teaching unforgettable. The Buddha confesses that arrogant monk, Dhammo, was him. He was talking about himself in a past life,
Wow. So this isn't a story about some other guy making a dumb mistake. This is the Buddha laying bare his own past ignorance, his own ego, and the unimaginable suffering it cost him. And then he completes the story. So what about Jingming, the wise teacher who was unfairly attacked? Well, it turns out he is now the Buddha we know as Amitabha, the Buddha of infinite light. It's an incredible contrast, isn't it? While the slanderer suffered for eons, the virtuous one just kept going on his path and achieved full enlightenment. So after telling this deeply personal and frankly shocking story, the Buddha doesn't just leave it there. He boils it all down into 4 key lessons, 4 direct instructions for anyone on a spiritual path. It's basically a roadmap for how to not make the same catastrophic mistake that he did. All right, so here's the takeaway, the practical stuff. First up, you have to see every other practitioner as you would a Buddha. Give them that level of respect. Second, don't create those divisions. Don't go around saying, this teaching is right, that one is wrong. Third, and this is a big one, you have to realize that slandering a genuine teacher is the same as slandering the Buddha himself. And finally, number 4, don't get tunnel vision. Don't become arrogant by mastering just one thing like Dhammo did with emptiness. The real path is about balancing all 6 of the perfections: generosity, discipline, patience, diligence, concentration, and wisdom. Now you might still be thinking, okay, but why is it so severe? 70 eons? And the Buddha explains it like this. When you slander the teachings or a real teacher, you're not just hurting that one person. It's so much bigger than that. You're basically poisoning the well of wisdom for everyone else, for countless people who could have learned something valuable. You're sowing seeds of doubt and confusion, and you might actually be blocking their own path to freedom. The ripple effects are just massive. And really, that brings us right back to today. This ancient warning, it isn't just about monks from a forgotten era, is it? I mean, think about our world now. Social media, comment sections, endless debates. The temptation to just shout, I'm right and you're wrong, is everywhere, and it's stronger than ever. So maybe the final takeaway is this. The next time you're about to fire off that angry comment or dismiss someone else's view, it's worth pausing for a second and asking yourself, am I just sharing my truth, or am I about to fall into that same ancient karmic trap of slander?